Paul Joseph Goebbels. Today, I will speak to you about a figure who emerged on the stage of history during one of the darkest periods of the 20th century, Paul Joseph Goebbels. He transformed words into weapons and played a decisive role in altering the fate of a nation. As the Minister of Propaganda of Nazi Germany, Goebbels did not merely shape the course of German history. He steered global history down a shadowed path. Throughout this speech, we will closely examine the evolution of his life, his critical role in the rise of Nazi ideology, his propaganda strategies, and the tragic end of his story. Paul Joseph Goebbels was born on October 29, 1897, in Raid, a town in western Germany, into a modest and devout Catholic family. His father, Heinrich Goebbels, was a railway clerk, and his mother, Maria Goebbels, was a deeply religious homemaker. Goebbels grew up in poverty, but he proved to be a gifted student despite the family's financial struggles. At a young age, he suffered from a bone marrow disease that deformed his right leg, leaving him with a permanent limp. This physical disability left deep psychological scars and influenced his personality profoundly. It bred in him a fierce need to prove himself, a constant hunger for revenge, and a fascination with grandeur. In 1917, Goebbels enrolled at the University of Heidelberg to study German literature, philosophy, and history. He completed his doctorate in 1921. Despite his academic success, he faced great difficulty securing employment. Aspiring to become a writer, Goebbels was repeatedly rejected by publishers. These disappointments gradually pushed him toward the political sphere, where his ambitions found fertile ground. In 1924, Goebbels became increasingly involved in German nationalism and anti-Semitic ideologies. That same year, he joined the NSDAP, the National Socialist German Workers' Party. At first, he gravitated toward the party's left-wing faction, led by figures like Gregor Strasser. However, everything changed in 1926 when he met Adolf Hitler. Goebbels was mesmerized by Hitler's oratorical prowess and magnetic charisma. His admiration turned into blind loyalty and eventually into idolatry. That same year, Hitler appointed Goebbels as the leader of the Nazi Party's Berlin branch. Goebbels quickly made his mark. In a city known for its left-leaning intelligentsia, he launched aggressive propaganda campaigns aimed at reshaping public opinion. He organized rallies, produced posters, and staged street theater performances. During this period, he founded the propaganda newspaper Der Angriff to disseminate Nazi ideology to the masses. Goebbels was an exceptional speaker. His speeches stirred emotions, unified the public around common enemies, and often incited hatred. Under his leadership, the Berlin branch became one of the most active Nazi centers in the country. On January 30, 1933, Adolf Hitler was appointed Chancellor of Germany. In March of the same year, Goebbels was named Minister of Public Enlightenment and Propaganda, a position that allowed him to wield immense influence. The press, radio, theater, cinema, music, literature, and the fine arts all came under his direct supervision. One of his first actions was the suppression of opposition newspapers and the centralization of media control. Goebbels did not see media as a tool for information, but as an instrument for manipulating emotion, creating fear, and inspiring hope. He mass-produced inexpensive radios, known as Volksempfänger, and distributed them across millions of households, to broadcast Nazi rhetoric. Hitler's speeches and Goebbels' messages were continuously aired. Film, too, became a vital component of the propaganda machine. Leni Riefenstahl's Triumph of the Will glorified Hitler and the Nazi regime, portraying them as divine and invincible. Under Goebbels' direction, anti-Semitic propaganda became ubiquitous. Jewish caricatures, hate-filled theater productions, and biased publications aimed to indoctrinate the public with racial hatred. The infamous Kristallnacht, the Night of Broken Glass in 1938, was a direct result of Goebbels' incendiary rhetoric and orchestration. With the outbreak of World War II, Goebbels' role became even more critical. He was tasked with maintaining public morale, vilifying the enemy, and glorifying Nazi military success. Early victories, such as the invasion of France, were celebrated with grand ceremonies and euphoric propaganda. However, by 1942, the tide of war began to shift. The defeat at Stalingrad marked a psychological turning point for Germany. Public morale was collapsing. In response, Goebbels delivered his infamous Total War speech on February 18, 1943, at the Berlin Sportpalast. He shouted, "Do you want war? If necessary, do you want a total war? If necessary, do you want a war more total and radical than anything we can even imagine?" This speech aimed to galvanize the German people into continued resistance. But the facade of invincibility had begun to crumble. By late 1944, Allied bombings had devastated Berlin. Hunger, fear, and despair dominated daily life. In April 1945, with Soviet forces closing in on Berlin, Goebbels, his wife Magda, and their 6 children took refuge in the Führerbunker Hitler's underground headquarters. After Hitler committed suicide on April 30th, Goebbels briefly assumed the role of Chancellor of Germany, though only symbolically. On May 1, 1945, Joseph and Magda Goebbels poisoned their 6 children with cyanide and then took their own lives. Their bodies were set on fire outside the bunker as per Hitler's instructions. Their deaths marked not only the end of a regime, but also a chilling moral collapse. Goebbels remains one of history's most disturbing examples of how propaganda can be weaponized. One of his most infamous maxims encapsulates his methodology. If you tell a lie big enough and keep repeating it, people will eventually come to believe it. Under his reign, mass communication was transformed into a one-voice system. Cultural production served ideological manipulation. Society was conditioned to hate. Today, propaganda continues to be a powerful force, not only during times of war, but also in times of peace. Paul Joseph Goebbels represent more than a historical horror. They serve as a cautionary tale for our times. Whenever lies replace truth, fanaticism replaces reason, and hatred replaces humanity, the shadow of Goebbels lingers. Defending truth, upholding pluralism, and preserving critical thought remain our most vital safeguards against such darkness. Thank you.